Hey everybody, Talk of the Town is up and running in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. Hey, spent a portion of this Thursday doing some holiday shopping, and retail is doing great, at least by the eyeballs telling you. We'll get the full numbers and what have you, and the pundits will discuss it at the end of the month and into early January. But people out and about this Thursday turned out to be a really busy shopping day. And I will admit, I will be open about it, and I will not be bashful about it. I went to the Oakwood Mall to do a good portion of my shopping. Oh, support local. And you're right. But there were some things specific that I wanted to get at the mall. Last year, by the way, I bought a couple of gifts from local places. Bought a good cookbook from the bookstore in downtown Eau Claire. But this year wanted to do something a little bit different, get a couple of other things. So uh, went ahead and went to the mall, and I've gotten some things at the mall. And the mall's bustling on this Thursday. Bustling on this Thursday, which is good to see. Even if you're rooting for the demise of the mall, and we've talked about this before, that mall's going to be around for still a number of years before anything would ever happen to it with its owners out of Chicago. But uh, good to see the mall kind of flourishing, if you will. There was activity at the mall, especially if you're around the from the food court area, or what remains of the food court area, to where the Hobby Lobby is. That wing with the various kiosks that have activity. There's the mall Santa, there's the Shields, there's the Hobby Lobby. A lot of excitement there. So that was fun. I was, by the way, in downtown Eau Claire this morning, though. Grabbed a coffee, took a couple of photos down there, enjoyed downtown this morning, taking advantage of the remaining weeks we have of free parking downtown. Lot to get to, as always, today. Want to begin with this. This hasn't gotten a lot of traction locally, and that's fine. Because it hasn't gotten a lot of traction, at least yet. We'll see where it goes. I think the fact it hasn't gotten traction is a little bit of a good thing, because people aren't just mad for the sake of being mad. But it is worth discussing. So Stephanie Farr is on the Eau Claire Area School District Board. She's been on the board since 2022. Her husband is the professor that basically pissed away his career being an idiot last April. And we can go back and rehash that, and how just the stupidity that he had in what he did. No matter what he believed in and what have you, in his position, you are a leader of those students, and that's not how anybody should act if they disagree with another political opinion. But that's another thing. But it's well known that Stephanie and her husband, very left, very liberal. Okay, they would probably take a cyanide pill before they would have to vote for somebody like Derek Van Orden. I use that as an excuse. I use that as an example because I don't want to vote for Van Orden. All right, we've said it before. Right now, Scotty's planning on sitting out yet another congressional race because I can't stand the Republican, and I don't think I'm going to like the Democrat either. But I think she'd take a cyanide pill before she would vote for Derek Van Orden. Now, that's very extreme there. They've got kids and whatnot. I don't think she'd actually do it, but I do think there's a shot. That's how left they are. Well, Stephanie Farr posted on her Facebook page, her school board Facebook page, something that is going to be happening actually tonight on Thursday, and we'll see if after tonight it gets traction. But at Mans Elementary, my kid's old elementary, they're having what they're calling a Black PTA interest meeting, inviting people to the inaugural Black PTA interest meeting at Mans Elementary on Thursday night. It's actually going to be right pretty much at the end of the live show we do. So many of you that are listening to this, it'll already have happened. But they're calling for all black teachers, staff, and parents of black and biracial children in the Eau Claire Area School District to join them to discuss the formation of a Black Parent Teacher Association. Of course, there's already the PTA. This, of course, has been picked up by some conservative outlets. This has been picked up by some liberal outlets, and everybody to their respective corner on this. Because you get the people that say, yeah, that's good. We've got to provide more opportunities for the minorities. There's the other side that say, well, where's the white PTA meeting? You've got that argument that comes out. And everybody needs to take a moment to, your initial thought is what your initial thought is. And you've got to let the emotions settle down. 'Cause I'll be honest, the first time I looked at it, I went, come on. All right, you start to slap your forehead and go, come on. But then give it 10 minutes to settle and start to think about this a little bit more rationally, a little more constructively, and be an adult. All right? Don't get too worked up about it quite yet. Now, the source is very liberal, of course, Stephanie Farr. So that sets the stage, if you will. And we could argue the motivations behind, because of what she typically stands for anyway. But I want to see this in action. I want to kind of see it in action. There is the PTA, and maybe you don't call it the PTA. All right, I do think wording matters, because why do we have you have the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association, which are active in the schools, especially at the elementary levels. Why do you have to call it the Black PTA? Does this mean that the regular PTA is not doing its job? Do you have to have a separate one? All right, do you have to have or can you have just another group can you have a separate group that's, you understand what I mean? Do you need to have a contrast instead of, okay, we've got the PTA, which is looking after all students. That includes all students and their families, but the vast majority of people in the Eau Claire School District are white. Let's have this separate group over here that operates not in competition, not in contrast to the PTA, but this other group has a little bit more of a narrower, niche focus as to what it is going to focus on. So you have the PTA, which is advocating for all students, and then in addition, you have this. If that's what ultimately this ends up being, then fine. All right? Then absolutely fine, because there is the reality, is everybody has to take a moment to step back and go, we do not have a lot of black or biracial children in the school district. That does not mean they're not being treated properly, doesn't mean that they're not getting good opportunities, but things get missed because they do have a quieter voice just because of numbers. They just have it's a quieter voice. We live in a democratic society, if you will. Thoughts and interests and all that, it's the vast majority. There might be things that run in contrast. That's perfectly fine to admit. It's perfectly fine to acknowledge that. And to have something like this, if it is run in addition to things we have and not in competition, then I think it could be a good idea. Hey, we didn't think of that. And I'm pointing at myself if you're watching the video. I'm white. No matter how much research I do or anything like that, there's things that I will simply miss. It's just as good, no matter how empathetic or sympathetic or anything like that, there are things I'm going to miss. We could use other examples of this as well that have nothing to do with race or culture or anything like that. There's other examples in your day-to-day life where you maybe oversee things, but the people that live it on a day-to-day basis are able to give you feedback. Think of a large company, for instance. And maybe you tend to overlook this one department that is still very important, but this one department doesn't usually get a say because it is one of the smaller departments. But eventually you want to hear, hey, what do they have to say? Okay, how do we make sure that they are still taken care of, even though they might not be a major cog in this as far as numbers go, but they're still uber important because if you remove them, the whole thing begins to crumble. Now, people could argue as well, Scott, you said you don't understand, well, why is Stephanie, a white woman, doing this? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I want to see this play out. I'm kind of happy it's not become a big screaming point for people in the area because it needs a moment to kind of cook. And let's see. Now, a year from now, if all of a sudden whatever group comes out of this, if a group is developed out of this, ends up running more. And I'm not, by the way, you get a group like this, even if it runs in addition and support to everything else, it's going to bring up ideas. It's going to bring up things that are going to contrast with way things have been done. All right, like any new group is going to bring forth ideas. But does this become an advocate group for the sake of advocacy? That's what I don't want to see. But let's see this play out. Let's see it play out. And even though you could have your thoughts on Stephanie and her husband as people and as policymakers and all that, that's perfectly fine. They have the reputation precedes them. But let's see this idea play out. And it's now ancient history. But think back, folks, to just before the pandemic, 6 years ago. Feels like it was yesterday, but 6 years ago, the big talking point in schools in, say, the winter of 2019 going into 2020 was CRT, critical race theory. That was the big debate going on. And you still got a little bit of it coming out of COVID, and it was all part of everybody just being pissed at school boards over everything and the pandemic and all that. But what we lost in the momentum of critical race theory was uncomfortable decisions, uncomfortable discussions. Because as we said in the early days of this program, I wasn't against the deep education of our history, where you could see where there are systematic things. Doesn't mean that you're at fault, doesn't mean you're racist, but you have to acknowledge some of the systematic things that put people into a circle, all right? And they can kind of improve a little bit, but they're still in a circle. And by more knowledge we have and the more things we really understand, we're also able to call people out when they truly are just using as an excuse. Because there are times where people use things as an excuse, a convenient excuse. But there's also times where that excuse is not an excuse, it's a valid reason. By the way, you want to talk about uncomfortable history. And we have to start having more uncomfortable history. History's still good. But I just watched the American Revolution documentary on PBS. That'll make you uncomfortable. It'll really make you think. History's not clean. It's not a clean cut, is history. The true story is very murky, which is even better. It shows you things weren't always perfect in the past, and they're not crap now. By the way, watched a couple of days ago the Kevin Costner thing on ABC on the birth of Christ, which I think everybody should watch, whether you are a believer or not. That too, I'll tell you something. Again, a big believer in history. I am a believer in Christ, but that is beside the point for this. There are times where you sit there in Mass or what have you, and you kind of start going, all right, this doesn't seem to make sense, and that's where faith comes in and all of that. But that show, the Kevin Costner show, sort of clears a couple of things up where you go, well, that doesn't make sense when you're hearing it on Sunday, and now you go, oh, well, this is probably how it really happened. Still says it happened, but this is now more plausible. But the whole idea, like it wasn't actually... Yeah, there's things from history we know. All right, we move on. The Chippewa Valley Air Show has announced it will be back in 2027 with the Blue Angels. That is a not an annual, but an every other year mega event for the Chippewa Valley now. The Chippewa Valley Air Show boys, the Scouts. They're not just the Boy Scouts anymore, but the Scouts put that on, benefits a number of charities in the area and nonprofits. Air Show back in 2027. Another event, Springfest in Chippewa Falls, announcing this week that it will become a single-day event this May and held at the Dome at Loopy's. The event benefits the Rotary, put on by the Rotary in Chippewa Falls. They get the money back to them, and then they distribute that out to the community. Springfest has had multiple iterations over the last 25 years. We chatted with them to highlight last year's event on one of our Chippewa Chats podcasts. But they noted when we chatted with them last year the changing landscape of events over the years. Their event used to be kind of more so like a flea market thing, then it had a carnival, and then it was more concerts and drinking, and it's all evolved over the years, has Springfest. And this year, moving from the fairgrounds to Loopy's, where it'll be a one-day concert in May. Menominee, Mayor Randy Knack announcing that it will be the site of an Amazon distribution station. They will build it in the Menominee Business Park just to the north of I-94, near where Hurlburt and the Ellsworth Creamery have opened in the last couple of years. 100 permanent jobs will come out of this Amazon distribution station. So this is a fairly significant build and going on in Menominee. The Mahara Shrine Club, one of many clubs in the area, hosting a Santa meet and greet this month. The Mahara Shrine Club doing their Santa meet and greet on Saturday. This Saturday, they'll hold it at the clubhouse. And I had to check a couple times. I was like, where's the clubhouse? And it's the Mahara Shrine Clubhouse, and it's on Folsom Street. And then again, that'll be this Saturday. The Eau Claire's Festival. Remember that? Last one was what, 2018. This is the music festival, indie music and whatnot, put on by Justin Vernon. All right, so this was Justin Vernon's kind of give back to the area. Put on an event. It disappeared once COVID came and had not returned. Well, they have hinted that it is coming back this year, and a lot of people believing it will be held at Carson Park based on some of the teaser marketing that they have sent out, that it looks like they may host it at the baseball stadium at Carson Park. We will wait for an official announcement there. There is a window it could be held there, because when the Express season is over, second week of August, the baseball field could be used. Baseball field could be used even in the winter time, not the winter time, but right into the fall. The ballpark, I was part of the Express when we did it, hosted a country music concert in, 2016 or 2017, held a country music concert. And that was, second weekend in September? Called it Carson Goes Country. I remember that. So they could host an event there at Carson Park. The field, ideally, eventually it becomes a turf field, and you can kind of host more of these types of things like that. But the field held up well and all of that. We will wait to see what they announce, but possibility that they host it at Carson Park. And I would like that. We've talked about all these various things in the area and the growth and new things and all that. We can't forget about Carson Park, because it was the jewel of this area and could again be the jewel of this area. You don't want to forget about Carson Park. Saw this story as well. Oh, there we go. The Chippewa Valley Technical College has a competitive cheer team, and they're going to be hosting a competition this weekend at UW Eau Claire at the McPhee Center, right across the street from CVTC. 13 students participate in the competitive cheer team. And competitive cheerleading is a cross between gymnastics and old-fashioned cheerleading. Rah, rah. It's very athletic, a lot of spins and whatnot. Do not tell a competitive cheer individual that they're doing gymnastics, and do not tell a gymnastics person, why don't you go out for competitive cheer. They are completely different things, even though the athleticism is very similar. But again, they're hosting a competition this weekend at McPhee. It's another example of CVTC dipping their toe more into co-curriculars. They've got they now go by the River Otters. They started up an esports team. They got various intramurals that they're building up. They've got this. Now, Dr. Garcia has been very quick to blunt any thought of starting up a full-on competitive athletic department. And we've had her on a few podcasts. We've had her off the record, too. And I'm okay saying this now, more than a year after the last time we talked to her. It is not something that, as of a year ago, was even on the radar. But they're looking for ways to get the students more engaged. And even though CVT's numbers are good, and people, they like any institution, are looking for more ways to, okay, you come to us and you can also do this. You're looking for more sellable opportunities to students. And what they have focused on are things that are, I don't want to say inexpensive to start up, but they don't have as much of a overhead startup in terms of infrastructure and cost. So that included esports. It includes something like competitive cheer. Remember, they don't have any facilities, CVTC, for athletics. They have to rent out spaces. I would be interested to see, though, revisit this in 2 to 3 years and see if CVTC does start to consider starting up an athletic department. And what would that look like? You'd bring on esports, would fall into that banner, competitive cheer. You probably would start up a basketball team, men's and women's, because there's a fairly low overhead for that. Probably wouldn't get involved in hockey. Probably wouldn't get involved in baseball even because of the short weather. You wouldn't get involved in football. But maybe you get involved in soccer. Again, a lower overhead, and there is available space in the area. And you can have a boys and a girls team, a men's and a women's at the college level. I could see them maybe dipping their toes into a small athletic department in 2 to 3 years, starting to research that more. But we shall see. They've lived without it. I think the last time CVTC had competitive athletic teams, it's kind of weird. A lot of people have lived in this area for decades. A lot of people forget the history of this area in the 70s and the 80s. I've asked people, and they go, yeah, I think they had one. And people go, yeah, they had some teams in basketball and all that, but nobody can tell me when they stopped. Sometime in the 80s, CVTC stopped having teams. But it's another example of, I could see CVTC really dipping into the stuff that UW Eau Claire doesn't offer as well. If they could find other colleges to compete. I don't want to say wacky sports. I don't want to say off-the-wall sports, but if there is a collegiate level of roller derby, for instance, and stuff like that, I could see CVTC dipping more into that as well. Because, again, you're trying to get students to come to your school. No matter how people may try to wax it, you are still trying to get students to come to your school. There is a competitiveness in getting students to come to any school. Before we go today and before we go this week, let's see if we've got anything else here we wanted to hit on today. Oh, let's see here. I don't think so. That's a Madison story. Nope, nothing really there. That's a downstate story. Nope, I really don't think there's anything else locally really to hit on right now. Some news out of Chippewa County. They've finalize the cities finalize the budget. They'll have money for a city administrator. Cool. Everybody make sure to stay warm this weekend. Going to be very, very, very chilly this weekend, so stay safe for that. Well, that'll wrap it up for us then today. Back with you next week, our last two shows of 2025 next week. On behalf of everyone who made this podcast possible, I'm Scott Montesano saying there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until next time, so long, everybody.